Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the ApitoZone. It is 7 p.m., and we're starting off right here where we always do, which is in the New York state of mind. And we're going to talk about the teams that are actually in season right now, trying to make some noise as we head towards the playoffs. Let's start off with the Knicks. They had a bit of a roller coaster on the West Coast. They picked up a strong win against the Nuggets, which is a great statement win, but then dropped both games in Los Angeles against the Lakers and the Clippers. So the road trip is at a 1-2, and unfortunately, it keeps feeding the same narrative surrounding the team. Can they beat an elite team consistently? And what they've shown is they've shown flashes where they can, beat certain teams in strategic matchups, but then there are certain teams for whatever reason get the best of the Knicks, and especially if they're a team with what I consider a good amount of length on the roster. Um, and what I mean about length is pretty much the ability to pretty much cover the floor and make sure that they pretty much force the Knicks into more more less than fortunate situations, as it creates a mismatch. And what it ends up doing is it definitely highlights the Knicks weakness on defense, and once that gets exploited, we see them kind of make sure that they kind of fall into that spot where they end up losing to a team like the Clippers and the Lakers, where they don't have all their players healthy. It's kind of inexcusable, but it can happen on the West Coast when they're traveling on the West Coast for a while. Um, with the playoffs approaching, every one of these games become a measuring stick, and the talent is there. They've shown that the depth is there as well, but fans are still wanting to see this group prove that they can handle the biggest moments. And when they come up, when they get blasted by the Pistons, and they lose a close game against OKC, and they also and then we can't forget about losing a game against the Cavaliers, and the Cavaliers kind of look like they're emerging, and they're pretty much not going anywhere, and they might be a potential matchup. Then you can't forget about Boston, and with the Celtics, we see Jason Tatum coming back, and with how the team is looking, they're already the number two team in the East without Tatum, and how they're looking now with him in a limited role, it's gonna be a scary matchup, and I'm just hoping that that window for the Knicks is still open, but it does look like the road to a championship or a finals appearance is definitely going to be a lot harder these upcoming weeks. Now shifting over to the ice and the New Jersey Devils. Last time we talked about them, they were coming off of a thrilling overtime win against the Maple Leafs, and they kept that momentum going with the big 6-3 win against the New York Rangers on Saturday. But then reality hit a little bit when they followed it up with a 3-0 loss to the Red Wings. And unfortunately, the standings tell a real tough story, and there's about five teams ahead of them, and they're behind 12 points in that last wild card spot. Now, 12 points, could be, divided by four games, but when you're having that many teams, you know, ahead of you, and it's that many points, and then when you're talking about ties, and it just creates a situation where this does look like for the Devils that at this point the playoffs is looking extremely unlikely, and so the focus might be shifting towards evaluating some talent and building momentum for next year. So we'll see how that's coming up. Right now, we have their upcoming schedule. The Devils will be facing Calgary tomorrow, and the LA Kings on Saturday, and then Boston on Monday, and then the Rangers next Wednesday. So we'll see how those games turn out for the Devils, and hopefully they can be able to keep up some of the goal scoring that they had before they hit the bid against the um, Red Wings. Meanwhile, the Knicks, they have a busy stretch. They're going to be facing Utah tonight at 9 p.m. And then they're going to be facing Indiana on Friday, a rivalry game that Indiana has been pretty much shown that they have gotten the better out of the Knicks for the last few years now, not including the playoffs. And then we've got Golden State on Saturday, and then we have Indiana again on Tuesday, and Memphis next Wednesday. So there's plenty of opportunity coming up for both of the teams to change the narrative for the rest of the season, but we'll see how that goes on. We're gonna transition and let's move on and playing right now, getting some teams for the next season. If anyone has any comments, you can put it in the chat, and I appreciate the dialogue and feedback. Um, the NFL free agency, the season has in the NFL always been chaos, and both New York teams are right in the middle of it. So we're gonna start off with the Jets and some of the Jet moves that we see here, and there is going to be a quarterback change for the New York Jets. Not a lot of Jet fans like this move. They may not think it's a popular move, but they signed quarterback Geno Smith. um, I'm a person that thinks that this could be a decent move. Trying to see, the silver lining on it. I'm not going to say he's a bad quarterback, and I'm not going to say he's a great quarterback, but I do think that it is going to be an upgrade. And I do see a comment, Roll Scout 2545. Why is Gino back? I think Gino is back because they were looking. They Gino is gonna still. I think Gino still thinks of himself as a starter, and I think with where the Raiders were going, the Raiders were definitely looks like they're definitely going to be picking Mendoza, and hopefully, um, with Gino, Gino hates his life right now. Well, I think if it turns out like his first two, like his rookie year and his sophomore year with the Jets, I can understand that. But I think that this might be a good signing. I think the fact that one on the bright side, Raiders are paying for pretty much all of the money. It looks like the Jets just gave him a little bit of a $1 million raise, so we'll see how this works. And I think that we it looks like 007 True Story. Huh, not a bad signing, and but we should get another vet. Yeah, I do think we should get another vet. I do think that Justin Fields can fill the backup role. I'm not, gonna be disappointed in that. And I think the next possible route might be to either draft a quarterback. And I'm not saying at 16, or I'm not saying within the first, or the second round, but I think, getting an experimental quarterback and, having them develop on, the roster and, see the playbook and see how it works out. But I don't think that it's something that they need right now, with this signing. And at the end of the day, to me, Geno Smith is a stopgap measure. This is not something that he's going to be the long-term fit. And hopefully we can be a competitive football team and keep the Jets competitive, because we all know they have not been very competitive. The defensive free agent signings, they signed Deshaun White, a cornerback, for a 1 year deal. Dane Belton, from the Giants, safety. Demario Davis, linebacker. David Owen Mata. Sorry for the bad pronunciation. My apologies. Joseph Osai, edge rusher, and Kingsling Ngarbe for the and another edge rusher, and then the big trade, of course, was Mika Fitzpatrick, acquired from the Dolphins as a major upgrade to the secondary. I think that that's going to be huge pickup as we really needed that help in that, especially within that safety spot. It looked like I had some high hopes for Andre Sisco, but it just didn't look like it was a good fit. And then not only did it look like it wasn't a good fit, he also got injured towards the end of the season, and looks like the Jets pretty much, I think, got a steal for Fitzpatrick, even with his age and the drop in production. I think the upgrade on what we currently had was huge. So we kind of, got through, the free agent signings. So the next part is, the NFL draft and what are they going to do with the number 2 spot and the number 16 spot. And I think the pick that they do at number 2, it looks like it's all leading to the to a pass rusher and kind of building up like a very, resourceful and versatile, front seven. While the 16th pick, it can go a variety of ways. They can I'm hoping they pick a wide receiver. I think that a wide receiver with possibly another young target with Garrett Wilson could definitely provide some openings for everyone else on the offense and give even Geno Smith a little bit more comfortability in picking out his options. Uh, Now, as far as for the defense, I think the defensive upgrades are definitely something that's going to be huge. The defense it was not good last year. And I think that there were certain players that already had gotten tired of the losing. We saw in the beginning of the year, or even before the season started, Quinn Williams decided to tweet out, another rebuild, uh, and I guess the rolling eyes emoji, and that kind of pretty much set the tone. And you kind of saw the rest of the defense already be in a situation where it looks like it was in flux, and we saw John, Johnson leave. We saw a few other pieces leave. We saw Gardner get traded. We saw Quentin Williams eventually get traded for the capital that they have now. And it was going to be it was very clear that certain players were tired of the losing, which is totally understandable. But there was also a massive drop in the production. It was as a Jet fan myself, it really bothered me on, how I felt, the first 7 weeks we had no pass rush, and then we trade our two best defensive players, and then all of a sudden our defense got a little bit better for for a couple weeks, and at that point it was just more of, felt like players were in their feelings and were just already looking for something better. All right, so get roll start 2-4 2-5-4-5. Get Fields out the building, and Garrett Wilson won't thrive with Fields. You know what? I'm gonna have to agree. Um, I had high hopes on Justin Fields, and I thought that it could work out. But when the second game of the season happened, not only did my expectations for the rest of the Jets change that rest of the season, my expectations for Justin Fields started changing because it was almost the same situation, and he had a better offensive line with this New York Jet team, but could not get rid of the ball, and there were not a lot of targets to get rid of the ball. And then when wide receivers were open, it looked like he was throwing the ball late. And then, the game with Denver was a very bad look where he was constantly, where it looked like, where, yeah, in some of those plays, he was, I would say about half the sacks, he was definitely holding on to the ball very long because he couldn't read the defense. Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I don't know if it's because he can't read the defense. Sometimes, it could be either slow processing, it could be a slow trigger, it could be a slow trigger. The one thing that's always haunted Fields was his slow arm delivery, where it just felt like it was very telegraphed, and you could definitely be able to read when he was going to throw the ball. So we'll see how this works out. There's still more to do with the draft. They've got a lot more picks to try to hit on. I don't know where they will go as far as, within the second round, but they definitely need to build up. And I think they're not done with trying to find more starters. What they have done in the meantime is they definitely got some depth on the edge rushers. They definitely got depth on the linebacker spot. They definitely got a few defensive ends and a few defensive tackles. So we'll see. He sees a little grass and he starts rushing, running. It's an automatic. Oh, I wish that was the case, Ro. That's where I will disagree. There was just a lot of times where he just wasn't even taking the option to run. He was just holding on the ball and staying in the pocket. So I wish he would have actually ran a little more. Do you think they should trade one of the first rounders for more picks? Uh, when they made all the signings for the edge rushers, I thought that they definitely created a scenario for more flexibility. But after hearing some of the, insiders and the people who are reporting on the actual reporters on the team, uh, who are on the beat and with them, it looks like they're going to stick with the number two pick. It's still a high value pick, and at that pick, you're still going to pretty much get most likely the best chance to pick the second best player outside of Mendoza, since his position is a position of need. So right now with the Jets, if we'll be moving on from the Jets and we'll be going over to the Giants side of the football free agency, as they also had a huge free agency this last couple days. One big one, Isaiah Likely for 3 years, and coming from the Baltimore Ravens, I think that is a huge pickup for them. Especially at the tight end position is becoming a position of importance. It's been a position of importance for almost over a decade, and you can kind of seen the evolution when you started seeing, certain, tight ends kind of make that mark. And now with Isaiah Likely coming to the Giants, where he is going to be the number one, not only tight end, but possibly the number two target behind Neighbors, it's going to be a huge, he's going to definitely break out and I think he break out way more with the Ravens because he was sharing the field with Andrews, and even that's not to say he's not sharing the field with another tight end with the Giants on the field, but it's just more. It's just the fact that he's going to be more of that target is going to be crazy. I think the Giants have big expectations, and let me read some comments here. Roll Stout 2545 says huge. That's a big deal. And Christian Arguello 9356 giving me hope. And Roll Stout definitely a number two target now for Isaiah Likely. Yeah, he's gonna get some catches. He's definitely going to get some catches. Then we've got Tremaine Edmonds. I think Tremaine Edmonds is definitely a good pickup for the linebackers. And then, Jordan, they signed Jordan Stout at the punter position, Darius Washington at the safety position, Greg Newsome at the cornerback position, Jason Sanders at the kicking position, and then Patrick Richard from an elite fullback who I remember from his Raven days. So they definitely made some points to re-sign a few players, and now we're gonna see what the Giants can do. I want to hear what you guys think. What are the possibilities for the Giants? And what do you think is going to be their next move for their draft from the chat? Uh, 007 True Story. He's going to be the number one for the first few weeks because Neighbor's still coming. Yeah, that's true. Neighbors is still coming back from the ACL tear, so we'll see, how that happens. Hopefully, he can make a recovery, and he's at least gonna, at least be the decoy in there. Silberman 00. Oh my God, Spike. Got a few minutes to listen, my friend. Help him out. I said, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Spike. So as the Giants, on the other side as well, we reshaped the roster. They're looking to add talent to address the weakness step by step. And after down the season, free agency is another way to build momentum. And after this, we head into the draft. There's still a few more days of free agents to be signing, and after they after these few days are over, we start to head into the draft. And then there's kind of like the second free agency period after the draft when rosters are solidified. So we'll see how the Giants and the Jets shape up the rest of their roster. And as far as for the offseason news, it looks like we're heading into another wild offseason that the NFL always provides for us every year, year in and year out. As far as for MLB's offseason, MLB is right now in spring training, and at the end of the day, I can care less about spring training right now with the World Baseball Classic happening. And let's be honest, right now most fans are, either focused on the NFL, the NBA playoff races, and spring training is literally an afterthought. So we'll transition over to a topic that I wanted to bring in and talk about, which was the WNBA CBA negotiations. I said that I would bring it up last week, heading into the deadline. The WNBA Players Association are currently in the middle of a major negotiation over the new collective bargaining agreement. The March 10th deadline passed without a deal, but talks are still ongoing. So yesterday was the deadline for them to try to get a deal to see if their season could be able to start and without any possible interruptions. And they weren't able to come to a deal. The current status, the executive directors of the players union said the discussions are moving in the right directions, but there are still major issues to solve. And the core issue that they're trying to solve is the revenue sharing, of course. And at the center of the dispute of the revenue sharing is, for the first time in league history, the WNBA generated enough revenue to trigger a revenue distribution. That means roughly, that means that pretty much when they made their profit, when the league became profitable this year, it kind of pretty much triggered the Players Association to re-engage in a new deal. So the main sticking points is for the players so far is several financial issues. One is the revenue sharing, of course. The league proposal is about 15% of revenue of gross revenue, and the players are more looking for 26 to 27. Uh, Looks like it's very ambitious, but we all know how negotiations go. They're gonna try to meet more in the middle, but we'll see, what other things they want. Now, the other things players want is a league proposed. The league proposed a 5.75 million. Pretty much a salary cap, while the union wants it to be under 9.5 immediately. So that's a huge gap increase, and we'll see. The union is definitely being very ambitious with some of the demands, but like in all labor negotiations, being a person, I think that they're gonna get that. I think that they're gonna try to at least, meet somewhere in the middle and try to get the best deal as possible for all sides. And then the league proposal starts about one the mat for the maximum salary. It looks like 1.3 million, which I think it's kind of a little low, but and the players want that to be a significant increase and that increase to happen right away. So there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to the sticking points, and we'll see how it works. We'll see how this works out. But the potential impact with about 59 days until the May 7th tip-off, negotiations are intensifying, and if an agreement isn't reached, the league could see its first ever stoppage in its history. So that's what they're trying to avoid, to make sure that they're not in the history books and make sure that they try to get a deal done with all this momentum and a pretty much a healthy Caitlin Clark coming into the season, a healthy everybody else healthy. And you got the sophomore year of Paige Beakers. You have it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to because there's definitely a lot of good basketball when it comes to the summer watching the WNBA. All right, let's. I'm gonna read some comments because I see that Spike definitely wants me to comment on any thoughts on Bam getting 83. Misinformation. I heard a local station happened to put on hearing friends will call Will got some way versus the Knicks. Oh man. So yeah, I'm actually was shocked when I saw the news and the highlights of Bam Adebayo getting 83 points. I was very surprised. I really thought that that number two spot by Kobe when he scored 81 was going to be held down for a very long time, but he, didn't he played very played fantastic. He had a great game, and 83 points is 83 points. You can tell me about the teams that he faced. At the end of the day, it's a professional team, and no one's trying to give up 83 points to one player. Not in today's NBA, and the fact that it still can happen, it's very surprising. And I don't think anyone is going to touch 100 points, but whenever you do get nights of Kobe and you do get nights of um, Bam Adebayo, it's crazy. Oh, thank you for the tip. I do have to work on that. Thank you for that. No, I do have to work on that, and that was something that, personally, from my professional days working throughout COVID, I was constantly reminded to straight up. So thank you so much. And Christian Arguello 9356. Bam must have a sore arm. Oh wait, no, sorry. Have everyone hating on Bam. People saying it was forced. I could understand why people are saying it's forced because when you're naturally a bigger guy, you're gonna, take, have like more, free throw percentages in that standpoint. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, Bam must have a short arm today, jacking up so many shots. Yeah, he should be. He should be. Yeah. Thank you so much. So will someone will hit 100 as long as they face. Oh man, as long as they face the Wizards, that is funny. As Christian added, the Wizards don't look like a good team, and they haven't, been at the best spot. But we'll see how they turn out. And as far as Bam hitting 83 points, I do think it's a special achievement that should be, recognized, no matter how many shots someone takes or whatever the case may be. The end of the day, it is what it is. They got the 83 points, and then it's not like he's not the number one option in Miami. So we'll see it. They haven't been a good team since Agents. That well, I think the John Wall and Bradley Beal had a couple of good years after Agent Zero. So I will disagree on that one. I saw Dewan Wagner get 100 at Camden High School. So wow, that's impressive. And I remember Dewan Wagner. I remember coming out of where when he was coming out of the draft, and if I'm not mistaken, he winning the uh, not winning, being part of the NIT tournament and taking that into the draft. So we'll see. So the next transition is to we're going to switch gears and talk about the combat and sports entertainment. In the UFC, we saw a big fight result. As and I have to stop saying certain things, find better fillers. We saw Max Holloway went down in a 5 round loss decision to Charles Oliveira. Oliveira walks away with what it looks like the BMF title, and now firmly positions himself as a serious contender in the lightweight division. 5 round domination where he pretty much controlled the tempo, was able to take down Holloway and control the rest of the 5 rounds out. And for Max Holloway, he's still 2-2 in the lightweight division ever since he's moved up. This is a little bit of a step back for him, but this can be something. He still has deadly power in his hands and will always be a threat in whatever, whether it's 145 or 155. So we'll see how that turns out in the next future upcoming days. As far as for the next future fight cards, there are a few cards with a couple of big names, but the title, as far as for the title fights, there hasn't really, it's not for looks like the next few cards out. As far as what's been happening on the sports entertainment side with WWE, the championship picture changed dramatically on the SmackDown side with Cody Rhodes capturing the WWE title, which reshapes the road to WrestleMania. It looked like Drew McIntyre was going to head into WrestleMania as the champion, and now it doesn't look like that at all. And we're gonna possibly see Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. We'll see how this works out, but we're gonna. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a little bit of an interesting wrinkle. Rumor is Drew McIntyre is leaving to film a movie. Meanwhile, on Monday night, tensions exploded as CM Punk and the Usos collided, adding even more chaos heading into one of the biggest main events in WrestleMania history. As far as what ended up happening, the Usos came out, wanted CM Punk to apologize for mentioning their uncle and pretty much disrespecting him, and it created a nice, interesting dialogue back and forth, and it exploded when the Usos pretty much pushed CM Punk, and it got physical and setting up for a good closeout. Hey Jose, why not tell us what your favorite sports are to watch and what did you play to oh so my favorite sports to watch, which we're gonna be getting to soon, with the World Baseball Classic. Baseball is definitely my first love. I loved playing baseball. I grew up with baseball. My grandmother was a big integral part, being a Yankee fan and also being a baseball coach for the Pee Wee and Little League. So it was a fun experience. Definitely a lot of strong baseball roots. And then I would say the second sport that I got into watching was actually basketball, with the Knicks, during the 90s. And when I was watching, the 90s Knicks that were a little bit of, I would say a more of a slower pace, sluggish, and very, beat you down type of style. They definitely were endearing to a lot of, the adults that I saw who were watching the Knick games as I want to say 8, 9, 10 years old when they were making those runs in the early 90s. As far as other sports, I got into hockey due to the MSG channel. Since there was a Nick game, there was always coverage and talking about the Rangers, and I became a Devils fan later on. And then I started watching football and became a huge Jets fan. I Not a day goes by where sometimes I don't regret that pick as a Jet fan, but there's sometimes, but there had, but there was a time where I do, remember it fondly where they were making, making the playoffs. Love you. If you talk bowling, I have to leave it. I'm not a great bowler, just to let you know. That is one of my weaknesses. I'm a better pool player than I am a bowler. But I understand. Definitely, bowling is definitely one of those skills that I got to get better at. 14 straight playoff. Yeah, not been good for the Jets. But as far as the fight game, so we'll see how with WWE WrestleMania still upcoming, so we'll see how that turns out. I do find it intriguing, the CM Punk Roman Reigns main event that's gonna be happening, and we'll see hopefully more uh, epic promos leading into it, because I think that that's kind of what really leads off into a great WrestleMania. When the promos are very good and they have a epic build up, it goes very well. Oh, and that's a great transition, Christian Arguello 9356, as he asks, "How do you feel about the USA possibility of not advancing to in the WBC?" Because we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about in around the zone. We're gonna talk about the World Baseball Classic, the fan the fan percent. Oh, thank you so much for that news, Spike. That is awesome. Daughter worked for C, and that is awesome. So the World Baseball Classic, I think once again, when it comes to drama, it is delivering once again. I feel like it has been a total smash hit. The pool play has went off without a hitch, and it's been, I want to say, very compelling baseball. The celebrations, the epic moments, the walk-off home runs, we even got, the Aaron Judge home runs that constantly get replayed on social media every single, second now. It's literally everything what baseball wanted in producing and, advertising and producing the World Baseball Classic to kind of garner more interest. And I think from a hardcore baseball fan perspective, it is definitely, hit on all the good vibes. Japan, the defending champions, continue to look dominant. They've been undefeated in pool play, and they are on their way to the to the quarterfinal, which will be the final eight. As far as meanwhile, as Christian brought up, the USA possibility, the United States is on the brink after a shocking upset loss to Italy during pool play. They might not make the quarterfinal. And the reason they might not make the quarterfinal is they lost the game. They fell down early to Italy 8-0 and lost the game 8-6. And what this does is now this makes the Italy Mexico game a very pivotal game. And if Italy wins, the United States advances as the second team in the pool to go on to the quarterfinal. If they lose, and if Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, wins by more than 4 or 5 runs, they will knock out the United States essentially, and it will be Mexico and Italy going into the quarterfinal, which I think is for the United States baseball fan. I think this will be a huge blow, and it will definitely damper some, momentum in the World Baseball Classic. But it will be one of the craziest stories because watching that upset yesterday was just I gotta say, it was crazy, yeah, to go down by like it was one of those things where I was just like, wow, and this is how it is. Baseball is baseball, and you can never really script it, and it's not supposed to be really scripted, no matter how much the analytics will try. And then especially with the World Baseball Classic, where you have country pride and everything else going on with it, and one thing I know is some of these players might wanting to be either signed into the major leagues and trying to use this as a chance to try to, break in or get some eyes towards them. So this is a huge opportunity for most people, and for them to kind of step up on the world stage and have these stories on these against these big time major leaguers. It's going to be something that they can, put on their, highlight film and, resume. Now the other teams, DR is playing with passion and emotion, and PR, and as far as with the Dominican Republic, every home run, every celebration has been pretty much looked talked about, and we're gonna see, how this works out. And then with Puerto Rico, they are still cruising through. They'll be facing they're number one in their pool play, so they'll be moving on as well. So we'll see, big time. So we'll hope for the United States to kind of get to that stage. As far as for the knockout stage, the uh, the single elimination, it will start on March 13th. So right away, we're on March 11th, so within 2 days, we're already into the single elimination stage of the quarterfinals. And those games will take place in Miami and Houston. And from there, we will move to the semifinals and the finals, wrapping it up from March 15th to March 17th. So by that time, by March 17th, this time, next week, we will be pretty much wrapping up the World Baseball Classic and seeing who won, what were the major storylines that we're going through. Hopefully, when the teams return home from the World Baseball Classic, we might have to, you know, do some, team bonding, between, because well, it looks like Kyle Riley and the and a few Seattle Mariners players might not be liking each other. Jose may offer. I appreciate that, Spike. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for offering that. We'll definitely talk more on that. And then as far as if anyone else has any thoughts on the World Baseball Classic, Mexico wins and if Mexico would need to win by 4 or more runs, that's how much they would need to win by, Spike. So if Mexico will win 3-2, that won't be enough. Christian, if they win 3-2 against Italy, that won't be enough. The United States will still be able to pass on through. As far as and now, before we wrap tonight's show up, we've got to talk about something that was a little bit of unexpected in sports media that I saw. And usually, I'm four or more and a win or lose, but 5-7-5. Yeah, yeah, four or more. Yep. So one thing I wanted to talk about in this, in this final transition is I wanted to talk about the news making that was, in what I call, when sports kind of combines with politics. I don't want to shy away from it. So when the news came out that Stephen A. Smith was possibly running for president, I did chuckle at first, but then I started giving it a serious look, and yeah, you heard that right. The real conversation about Stephen A. Smith entering into politics. We know that he's been on a lot of correspondent shows on Fox News and kind of pretty much trying to debate everyone and go into those circles and you know bring in a bigger platform and to try to have a bigger conscientious space in that political sphere. And there's just as everyone knows, there's going to be a lot of big questions, and one, is this serious? And is this serious? Is this a serious run? Is this something that he's really thought about? And how many steps are going in? What element? Yes. And then we also want to know is, why does it matter? Well, of course it matters when you're running for the highest position in the land, and especially with the president that we have in office right now, that is considered to be a very divisive figure. We're gonna see it's gonna cause up a lot more. It's definitely gonna cause up a lot more hip roar. And then how would someone in the sports media background transition into governing is also another question that people will ask, and what are his experience within public policy, and what is he going through. And because the one thing that I know is, once you get into the meats and potatoes of policy making, it's more than just getting a couple of talking points and going on a cable news on a cable news panel and just regurgitating those topic points. And how is he going to govern? By like what type of politics he's going to be implementing is going to be very important, and it's going to be very decisive on where he could win. I think there's certain advantages that Stephen A may have, because I do think that he is a very captivating and galvanizing person, where he can be able to inspire people to try to go out and vote for him. But there's also certain politics that I know that he, even for me, and people can say whatever my leaning is. There's certain things that that have been said by Stephen A. that I even raise my eyes and say, okay, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. And hopefully, as time goes on, because we all know what happens in politics. Once you have those elite, advisors and people who break down the numbers and knows what works in different focus groups and different, segments and different pockets of America, you're going to try to, tailor and curtail that message. I do know that there's certain messages that he says, even certain New Yorkers will even disagree. But there's I know that there's a lot of people that also will agree with him. So it's going to be an interesting thing of how this turns out. But we'll see how it looks interesting. I will definitely like to see how it does turn out because, as a person that is definitely big on entertainment, watching Stephen A. Smith and Donald Trump on a debate stage would actually be kind of, funny and entertaining from my standpoint. So I'm going to read off some of those things. Stephen A. Smith is a political moderate. He has not a fit today. Well, yeah, he does lean moderate. From my understanding, he leans moderate to conservative. People like to hide behind fiscally conservative, but I'm sorry, anyone who's ever managed their paycheck before, everyone is fiscally conservative. Hate to break that to everybody, but nobody goes out there and wants to overspend money on things. Like, we all know that everyone's situation is different and there's reasons why. But when it comes to managing our paycheck and everything, and once we see how much money we get back and everything, and how much our bills cost, and how much our things cost, and how much money we try to save, that's literally the definition of of trying to be frugal and fiscally conservative. So he leads, so that's his big calling card. And then his big calling card is essentially what I think is kind of what become the new moderate or centrist democratic way, which is to pretty much bash the progressive wing of the Democratic Party to pretty much garner those conservative votes that may have the view that the progressive wing is a bunch of radical socialists. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out and how possibly that message change, because in certain cities and certain places that might that politics actually does play well. From first program, you're more. Oh, thank you so much for the this. Yes, thank you. And what about healthcare? Your situation and mine. 400K so far. The economy, healthcare, main issue for a lot of people, and healthcare is a main issue for a lot of people. As a person that has had many bouts with healthcare in the beginning stages from my own personal experience, when Obamacare first started launching off, I was a substitute teacher, and being a substitute teacher, I had to pay for my health care monthly out of my pocket. And while the Obamacare did make it affordable and I was able to be covered, there was still a lot of health issues that, persisted and that ended up happening, that ended up weren't being able to be fixed until right now. So healthcare is something that definitely is going to be a lot on the American minds. And I can only say that it's going to be a driving issue when the election happens, because when you're having a lot of people being kicked off of their insurance, it's just not a good look. It's just not a good look. And when that when it's going to be that many people and they're not going to have that backup or to kind of be covered and to kind of be able to make sure that their health expenses stay low, it's going to be a problem. And the reason that I know it's going to be a problem is because throughout that, time of being a substitute teacher and, having that health insurance, it ended up leading to, I had a procedure with my ear where it ended up leading to more, surgeries down the line, and it ended up being more cost effective. And that's kind of what most doctors pretty much say actually skyrockets the system, where they're not able to be able to get the procedures that they need done early because they're not able to get certain things approved. And when they can't get what they need approved right away, it creates a waiting game. So And I know that there's a lot of things happening. Great point about everybody being. Yeah, yeah, Raw. I think that everyone is fiscally conservative when you actually break it down. I don't think you're trying. I don't think there's any gravy points of trying to act like you're, part of, anything. Um, it's a huge issue. Sports and escape, but diversity of talk often attracts sports fans too. Thank you so much, Mike, and I do appreciate that. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I want to be able to make sure that this show doesn't shy away from politics. I don't want to. I do understand that most of sports talk audience may lean a certain way, but I believe that part of sports escape and kind of sports being a microcosm of life is to actually examine some of those life issues that are happening. And as a person that you know is a as a person that has been teaching social studies, having all the social science, experience and going through all of, the experience, I just feel like we shouldn't be able to not talk about it. We can have a discussion, have commentary, and we don't have to get into the weaves of who we are politically. And I'm a person that when you look at my Instagram and you look at my Twitter and my all that stuff, you're gonna know exactly how I lean, sadly. And I'm a person that takes all newcomers and takes all people on. It does not matter, but it will be in a respectful decorum, and it won't be in a gaslighting way. It will be pretty much what I call people talking to people. It's not, team this talking to team that. It's gonna be, me, Jose from Brooklyn, talking to whoever the person is, and that's how it is. I think sports fans are divided as fans of teams. Yankee fans most popular, but the Knicks fans have the largest market. No, I do agree with that one. Yankee fans, Yankees are the most popular team in New York, based off of the championships, the history, the lore of it. But when it comes to the market size and share, I think the Knicks, from a long franchise and being the only New York franchise, and I know the Brooklyn Nets have been here for a few years, and I know that they were the New York Nets when they were in the ABA, but it's not quite at the same level as the Knicks. It never really has been, and the Knicks are definitely one of the largest market teams, market shares. I definitely do agree with that. So if as far as for the Knicks, we do have a few more games coming up. Hopefully, they can be able to um, shape up what they're doing. As far as my key takeaways and heading into tonight's game, hopefully, Carl Anthony Towns can still be a presence on the board and still keep rebounding at a high rate. Hopefully the defense still, can kind of come back to scene to where it was. It looks like they've kind of bad matchup, but at the end of the day, these are the matchups that you're going to be facing in the playoffs. Even though you might not face the Lakers or the Clippers per se, you're going to face a team that has that large length and that can be able to cover the floor and then also be able to get Brunson into a bad mismatch. And we want to make sure that heading into tonight against Utah that they kind of change it around and hopefully they can finish out the next two games on this road trip positively and walk away with a 500 record and possibly take a huge gap, a huge jump because I don't know what people feel about Boston, but I think Boston has definitely re-entered the conversation and is definitely going to be a huge matchup down the stretch. So I want to thank everyone for tonight who definitely did hop in. I appreciate everyone who is commenting in the chat. And if anyone doesn't have anything else to say, I want to thank you guys. Thank everyone who's there, and thank you, Spike, for the nice words again. And thank you again. Looks like here, onward and upward. Any word on Thompson's ankle break fracture Pistons or earlier? Oscar Thompson's good job, Jose. Oh yes, Oscar Thompson. Right now, I don't have any news right now. I will get back to you on that. And as far as, but I do know about the ankle break story, but I will get more news on that because that is a huge piece for the Pistons, and we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the season, because that's going to definitely affect substitutions and rosters, and substitutions and rotation changes. So I wanted to thank you guys for signing in. Thank you guys for commenting on the chat. If you enjoyed the discussion, make sure to like the stream, subscribe to the channel, drop your thoughts in the chat, and if there's any type of, you know, topics or even possible career advice that you would need, I'm definitely an open ear. I definitely help people out with career paths and as far as resumes and everything. As far as our next show, we will have a next show on the 18th, next Wednesday. Most likely, this show will be airing on Wednesday. If there is a Knick game on the East Coast, it will be at 10 p.m. We'll be starting at 10 p.m. right after the game, and then if there is a West Coast game, we'll be starting this show a little earlier at 7 p.m. So that way we could, head on up and watch the Knick game, and hopefully root for our New York Knicks to win. But I want to thank you guys for coming into the stream, chatting with me, and giving me the likes and the views, and trying to grow, the ApitoZone into being a bigger, show. Hopefully, thank you so much, guys. Have a great one.